Alright, this is how I do my Aussie style fall hitches. So as you can see here, I'm in a 4-plait braid over a single strand core, which is a little bit shorter so I can easily differentiate the strands. And as you can see here, I've got my fall secured in place already. Now before I even start the hitch, what I'm going to do, or what I have done here, is for the last 1.5 to 2 inches, I've tightened this area up right here. And the way I do that is I just tighten up all the strands. Make sure I pull the core down and keep it tight. And the reason I do that is because usually when you use a whip, or at least a whip with an Aussie style hitch, the areas that tend to get really loose really quickly are the areas right behind the fall hitch and the transition. I found that tightening it up keeps it from loosening up too early in the whip's life. So here, as you can see, I've got my fall in place. So I like to give it about a couple inches of buffer room, line it up in the back, and I'll take the strand that's the highest, come around, and I'll take that right there and make a half hitch. The way I do it is I go around and through, and right here, as you can see, it's kind of like a fold right there. I like to maintain that fold right there. Snug this up right there, pull out the slack, and then tighten this one up. And then give this one a decent snug pull. And I like to keep the first one tight, because this way it can maintain the rest of the strands in place while I work them. And I usually don't tuck the last strand through that one anyway, so it's fine if it gets tightened. To differentiate this, I'm just gonna make a quick overhand knot, which I can do very easily. I'm not making it too tight, but now it just tells me that this one has already been worked. So I'm gonna lay it down flat, straight in the middle, and from here you're pretty much free to do whichever strands you want to do next. But for me, I like to go everything on the same side first, so since I started on the right, I'll continue going on the right. So here, I'm going to go around that strand that just worked, and around the fall. Same thing. Tie that half hitch. This one can go a little bit looser. You still want to keep it somewhat snug, but it doesn't have to be overly tight. And now that that's in place again, I'll tie another overhand knot right there and keep that centered. Right there, those two. Okay, now I'm going to work the other side. Whichever you feel is the closest at the time. I like to take it underneath and over these 2 strands, over the fall, tie that half hitch, again with that, leaving that half fold at the top, and keep it just snug, doesn't have to be super tight. And just lay that right down the center. Tie your overhand knot. Keep it separate from the rest. Now we can take the last strand and come under these as well. You can keep those nice and snug at the top. Around there, around the fall. And then stick that right back in place. Pull up the slack, keep it snug, and tie your knot. Okay, now we're on the core strand. So depending on who makes the whip, some people don't use this in your half hitch. Oh, sorry, they don't hitch this. For me personally, since it is a core strand, eventually as the whip gets broken in, it's going to start to loosen up. And if you pull the core strand, what can potentially happen is you can kind of put it into almost a Chinese finger trap. effect. And the strand will just, the core strand will remain in place, and the rest will pretty much be able to slide up and down at free will. So to keep that from happening, I secure the core strand last, and it also keeps it from accidentally getting pulled, because as I use the whip, what I like to do is I like to tighten these strands up throughout the whip's life, just to keep this entire hitch nice and tight. So here I'll incorporate it into the Aussie style fall hitch, same like the rest. Tie that half twist, and now, as you can see there, full 360 is nice and neat. All you gotta do is just snug it up a little bit, and then now looks pretty cherry. So I've got a hemostat here. I'm gonna slip that end through the back 3, just like that. This last one right here, I'll just clench that strand in place and just use that. Now that that strand is in place, I'm now more free to tighten up these strands. Pull the strands up nice and snug. All right, there we go. So now, it doesn't have to be super tight on each one right off the bat. You can do what I just did. Do a few light tugs to get that in place. Sorry, let me fetch my hemostat for a second. So, now we're just gonna stick that right in the back there. Now that that's good to go, we can just slide on up, pull that right there. Pull it tight. Now, we can take that last one and pull against each other, clench it up. Now, pretty much free to tighten it once again, which I'm gonna do right now. Right now, this strand is actually free, so try and gently, very gently. If you ever had a hemostat jammed into your hand before, it's not the most pleasant experience, so get a good grip on it, make sure it goes through. You can pull that one nice and snug. Okay, pull the slack from there by pulling it outwards. Now you can pull it back. And once again. Now, after a roll, before I actually snip it, I'm going to give it a roll, and then I can tighten it up again, but that's pretty much it right there. Just to make it a little bit more manageable, I'm going to slice off most of the strands. For me personally, if I was about to trim this off, I leave about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, so right about there. It's a little bit longer than a lot of people do it, but eventually the strands are going to shorten up through use, and once you get to that point, it's a pain in the butt to really pull them out with a pair of pliers. Once you pull it with a pair of pliers, sometimes you can put some abrasion wear on the strands themselves, so I'm going to trim them anyways. This way, 2 inches gives me a little bit more leeway to seal it off as needed. So for now, I'm going to give it about 4 inches. And then for now, just trim that there. That's pretty much it. All right, here, this is how I roll it. So just a little bit behind there after you roll the rest of the whip, and then just right there on the hitch as well. You can also tap it to kind of shape it the way you want. But there you've pretty much got your fall hitch all ready to go. Before I trim these, I'm just gonna tighten them up one last time. That's good to go. Again, about 2 inches, so I'm looking at right around here. Quick heat. This one I cut a little bit more flush to the rest of it. Right about there. Now, that is how I do my fall hitches.